Welcome to the Genius Way Show with your host, Ben Hummel. The aim of this show is to provide education, encouragement, and insights for people who are on their own personal development journeys. As a psychotherapist, teacher, author, and creator of the Genius Way process, Ben will focus on identifying common challenges to living a purposeful life, and will share valuable psychological and spiritual tools to help you make healthy and empowering life changes. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey friends, welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummel, and it's really good to be with you here again this week as we're going to get into everything regarding personal development and discovering your inner genius and how to express it in the world for a state of fulfillment. That's a tall task, and it needs to be done over and over and over again, each for individuals and for all of us. So, okay, here we go. So the topic today is how to start making generative mistakes. And so what the heck does that mean, generative mistakes? So most people always naturally try to avoid making a mistake. It's embarrassing. It feels like a failure. A mistake is like, not what you set out to do. You set out to succeed. You set out to be successful. You set out to be right? And many times we do make mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes we make are seen, like I said before, they're seen as failures, and they're seen as like, okay, well, I need to stop now because I tried something, it didn't work, so now I'm going to go home and get under my covers and kind of cry. This is not the way mistakes are supposed to be regarded. So the first thing we need to do around making, generative mistakes, meaning mistakes that actually turn into the next step, is to reframe what we or reimagine what a mistake actually is, right? So a mistake is not a place to stop. A mistake is not something has gone wrong. Mistake is just information. When we make a so-called mistake, let's say we go down this path instead of this path, and we go down one path and find a dead end, or we find a crocodile at the end of the path, or whatever we find, and it's not what we were intending to have happen, then we have that information. Okay, this path doesn't work, right? And what that does, it kind of eliminates something that you no longer have to waste time doing. Down that path is a big old crocodile, and that's not what I'm trying to do, is to discover a new type of crocodile. I'm actually trying to get to the beach, or whatever it is. Okay, so the first thing to do about making generative mistakes is to reimagine what the heck is a mistake anyway. What is a mistake to me? Because if you're somebody that is like any kind of creative person, if you're somebody, and trust me, doing personal development work is a very creative process. You have to kind of respond every day to the challenges in your life and kind of, reestablish, this is what I'm doing. I'm here to grow. I'm here to learn. I'm here to express what I have within me to express. I'm looking for a state of life fulfillment. All those things have to be reestablished. And so along the way, mistakes are not only inevitable, they're expected. So part of the reimagining of what a mistake is to expect things to not work sometimes. And when you see something that doesn't work, it's not like I'm going to bow my head and go away. No, it's more like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Now I know. And now I'm going to move in a different direction, or slightly different, or something. And a lot of times also mistakes, and again, I'm going to say so-called mistakes can serve to give us new ideas. Unless we really kind of go all the way down a certain path to see if something's going to work, we won't have the next idea dawn on us. We won't have the next idea appear in our awareness, because we haven't tried this one thing yet. Okay. So every time we try to do some kind of creative endeavor or some kind of self-expression or some kind of personal development work, we're going to find things that just don't work. And it's good that they don't work. It's not a bad thing. And so reimagining mistakes as a necessary part of the process is the first step. So I'm going to read you a quote by Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh, and it's about this issue and making generative mistakes. So he says, if one wants to be active, one mustn't be afraid to be wrong sometimes. Not afraid to lapse into some mistakes. To be good, many people think that they'll achieve that by doing no harm. But that's a lie. That leads to stagnation and mediocrity. So just slap something on it when you see a blank canvas staring back at you with a sort of imbecility. And I just love that quote. I can imagine him looking at this blank canvas like, okay, what am I going to paint? And the canvas is kind of staring back at him like an imbecile, like, duh, right? And he's like, okay, I'm just going to start here. What am I see? Oh, there's a sunflower. Oh, there's some people in the field, right? And he just starts going. And when you start to slap it on there, you can see, man, that's not quite right. And I move this over here, and that's not the right color. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start, like, moving the pieces around on the chessboard in order to know, like, where you're eventually going with your idea, with your creative process. Okay. So not only do we not want to avoid mistakes, because trying to not make a mistake, like Van Gogh is saying, and I agree with him, leads us to mediocrity and stagnation. The worst thing you can do is to stagnate your creativity or your self-expression because you're afraid to be wrong. That's not where you want to be. Okay. So, but even that mistake of stagnating yourself, you're going to feel the stagnation and you're going to be like, nah, this doesn't feel good. I can't just sit here afraid of making a mistake and not take any action. So ultimately, making mistakes is part of the deal. It's part of the function of how we do what we do as humans. And so take a look at yourself. Do you feel okay making mistakes? What's at stake for you to be right, to do an endeavor and make sure that it works out? Does that ever stop you from taking a chance when you have something to say, when you have something to express, when you're curious about something? Does the fear of being wrong ever stop you? Okay. And if it does, you know how it feels to be stagnant and mediocre. Okay. So mediocre is basically a kind of a Latin way that the etymology of the word mediocre. Ochre is a rough mountain, and medio means in the middle. Okay, so mediocre basically means halfway up the rugged mountain. And halfway up doesn't do it. Either stay on the bottom or go all the way to the top. Being in the middle means I'm just stuck here and it's stagnancy and I'm afraid to move up or down. Okay, so mediocrity is not a destination. It's not a destination. It is the misunderstanding of our effort to self-express, right? Because nobody who expresses their genius is mediocre. Nobody who expresses their genius and kind of embraces their authenticity, their uniqueness, the thing that's special about them that they were born with, their genius qualities, in other words. Nobody who expresses those fully is ever going to be mediocre, because mediocre means you're stuck halfway. right? You're stuck halfway up the mountain. What could be the mountain in this circumstance? It could be the full expression of your genius, the full expression of what you came here to express with your life, and the kind of fulfillment of your mission here, basically, as the individual that you are. So, anyway, um, all this ties into how do we deal with mistakes? How do we regard mistakes? So, if you can walk out into the world with your creative endeavors and just your self expression from your genius being intact, if you could walk into the world and literally have no fear of making a mistake, can you imagine how powerful that would feel for you? How much freedom that would enable you to have with whatever you're doing. If making a mistake is not the end and then now I go away, but an anticipated, normal part of doing my creativity, it's just like a step along the way, a mistake. Okay, so it's important to reimagine this for ourselves, right? So, all right, we're going to talk about this a lot more. Take a look at this little video about generative mistakes, and then we're going to dig into this topic a little bit more.
Hey, what's up, creatives? Today, let's dive into why making mistakes is actually the best way to learn. You know that feeling when you mess up? It sucks, right? But here's the thing, those mistakes are gold mines of information. I call them generative mistakes. Think about it. Every time you make a mistake, you're handed a unique opportunity to understand what not to do. It's like a spotlight shining on a path you wouldn't have considered otherwise. When I started out, I made so many blunders, but each one pushed me closer to getting it right. Mistakes force you to ask questions, to dig deeper, and to come up with creative solutions. They turn you into a problem-solving machine. Imagine you're an artist trying a new style. Your first attempt might look nothing like what you envisioned, but hey, now you know what doesn't work, and that's crucial. Generative mistakes are all about paying attention. Don't just brush them off. Analyze them. What went wrong? Why did it happen? And most importantly, how can you pivot and improve? Remember, every mistake is a stepping stone towards mastery. It's a sign that you're pushing boundaries, trying new things, and ultimately growing. So next time you mess up, don't get discouraged. Embrace it, learn from it, and watch yourself transform into the creative powerhouse you're meant to be. All right, folks, that's it for today. Keep creating, keep making those mistakes, and keep learning. See you in the next one.
So if you take away the boogeyman of, I can't make a mistake or else that's a failure, take away that whole idea and reimagine it as like, well, mistakes are good. Mistakes help me to learn. Mistakes help me to, choose a different path that didn't work. It educates me, right? And so when you take that away, then there is no failure, because you're not going to stop. Life doesn't stop. And if you don't stop in your endeavor to self-express, to create, to, grow, then there literally is no failure. There's no mistake being made. So again, that's why it's such an important thing to, I keep using the term reimagine, because there's so many things, so many negative connotations to the word mistake and even failure. So, when I say mistake to you, I would always almost imagine that it doesn't feel very good to hear that. That was a mistake. There's always a graveness to saying that. Oh, that was a mistake. Never like, that was a mistake. Wonderful. But that's really how we have to start looking at it. Great, I made a mistake. Now I know something more than I didn't know because I tried something. I wasn't mediocre. I tried. I made an effort. I had an idea. I was curious and I had an idea and I expressed that idea. And then it didn't take me where I wanted to go. So it either took me somewhere else or it took me to a dead end. And now I know I don't have to go there anymore. Okay. So there's another idea here around this idea of making generative mistakes, meaning the mistakes I make give me more. They produce different avenues of exploration. They inform me. They help me to narrow down a way that actually is going to work for me to express or, deliver my message or whatever it is for you, right? And so the other idea here is the idea of failing forward. And that's a book by John Maxwell, and so the idea of every time I fail, not just make a mistake, every time I fail, like I didn't get to where I was wanting to go. I didn't get to, the end of the rainbow with this effort. But now I know something more. I know something more than I would have known. How do I say this? I know something more than I wouldn't have known if I didn't take the effort, if I didn't make the mistake, and if I didn't take a chance to fail, right? Winston Churchill says success is going from stumbling from failure to failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So how is that possible? How is that possible? Only if you reimagine what mistakes and failure is, right? If you don't see failure or mistake as the end of the road, as like, well, I played my hand, that's it, and I'm just going to kind of disappear now. If you don't see it that way, but you see it as like, oh, okay, I put everything behind it, and as a result, my reward after not, having that work out, my reward now is that I learned something. I understand more about what not to do, which completely turns into I learned more about what to do, right? So failing and mistakes are not the end. It's not your ultimate destiny. It's part of the process, right? And so wherever you find yourself on your life path, you got to see that you're in a process. You are walking the bridge from birth to death, and there's no place to stop there. Ultimately, we will all leave this planet. We'll leave our bodies, and whatever happens, fill in the blanks. You have your own idea. Everybody's got their own idea. And between the time that we're born and we die, we walk on a bridge. Our life is like a bridge. And no matter how much we try to stay, no matter how long we try to make an encampment on the bridge, we can build a house on the bridge, we are all going to go. We're going to go from one side to the next. Okay. And so seeing that's how life is set up, our expressive self needs to kind of take a clue from that and realize that there is no place to stop. The idea of mediocrity being halfway up the mountain or literally halfway across the bridge, you can't stop. Life is going to keep pushing you forward. So if you adapt that idea, that feeling of how to go after your self-expression, how to express your genius, the things you were born with, as I don't stop because I made a mistake. I don't stop because something failed. I keep going, even after a so-called failure, even after a mistake. I just keep going because that's the nature of everything. Everything keeps going, right? In one way or another, it keeps going. It doesn't stop. And so this is kind of, the idea of the Tao, the flow of life, the way of life. It just keeps flowing. And when we stop and we say, I failed, I made a mistake, that's it, we are out of the flow of life. We are not flowing with what is actually happening, right? And so that is certainly the old idea of failure and mistakes. Is like, okay, didn't work, so now I have to stop. Another way to think about it is this. If you don't expect to make mistakes, you are kind of taking yourself out of the basic way that life works. Everything, everyone, everything makes mistakes. Everything falls short somewhere along the line, but doesn't stop. Nothing stops. The rocks, the trees, the stars, everything is in movement. Everything is kind of changing evolving, growing. Nothing stops. And so when we try to be too careful and not make a mistake or not, not fail even, if we see ourselves as that, we are really kind of seeing ourselves in a very unrealistic way. There is nobody that hasn't failed or made mistakes and will continue to do so. So if we try to position ourselves in a way where, well, I don't want to make a mistake, I'm not going to do that, or I don't want to fail, so I'm not going to endeavor that. Or when I do fail, then I have this terrible breach of my self-worth or my value as a human being. We're literally pretending that we are the only ones that should not fail or make a mistake, right? So it's a really terrible setup. So instead, go into your project, go into whatever you're doing creatively with the idea that some things are not going to work, right? It's not that I'm going to be a pessimist. It's that I'm going to not stop. This creative enterprise that I'm in feels so important to me that I'm not going to stop anywhere. I'm going to keep going. And I anticipate some things won't work, but I ultimately will find something that does work, something that is a success, something that actually, takes me over that line of where I'm trying to go, right? So it's not about, I expect failure and that's it. No, it's like failure is part of it, failure is part of it, but it's not the ultimate failure. I will fail along the way. I will stumble along the way, right? I will fall short along the way, but it's the way. It moves, and I'm going to keep moving with it. Past the failure, past the mistake. Okay? That's the new way to kind of orient yourself for any kind of creative process or any kind of personal development work. That's the way you do it. So, okay. So let's take a short commercial break. And then on the other side of that, I'm going to take you through a guided journey to help you orient yourself to this new way of approaching your creativity where mistakes are part of the process. I'll see you on the other side. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I'm finishing up my new course, the Genius Way Process course. This course is for anyone who wants to discover what's in their genius, their inborn gifts, their talents, and their callings. In this course, I'm going to provide you with the 10 life skills that we all need to access our individual genius and to make it a part of our everyday life. If you'd like to know more about the Genius Way Process course and when it's available, go to thegeniusway.com and sign up to get notified. I can't wait to share this with you. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, and then deeply exhale. I want you to allow yourself to float back in time to a memory of you making a mistake. You don't have to try to find this memory, and you notice that it simply appears in your mind's eye without any effort. Which mistake memory do you see? How did you feel at the time making this mistake? What is the story you've held on to about yourself concerning this mistake? Now let's reimagine this memory from your past with the idea that a mistake is only part of the journey. Place yourself in that memory again, knowing that it's necessary to take a chance to express yourself, even if you make a mistake. See yourself continuing on with your life, seeing that this mistake simply is information and something that you learned. From your current vantage point, what did you learn from that memory? How has that learning informed your current life? From this experience, you can see that mistakes are natural and are to be expected, and that they happen so that you can refine your creative expression. And now, with this experience fully intact in your awareness, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. So one of the favorite parts of my job as a psychotherapist is that I get to, work with some really cool people all the time. I get to learn about their lives, what makes them tick, what their fears are, what their dreams are. And along the way, to help them understand themselves a little bit better, I try to kind of grasp, where they're at in their lives and kind of feed it back to them so they can kind of see it as a reflection coming from me. And sometimes I'll say something like, wow, that must have been really difficult for you. Or, that was a beautiful day then, wasn't it? Something like that. And the coolest part about my work is that I don't have to be right. They are more than entitled to come back and say, no, Ben, that's not really what I meant. I'm like, really? Good. What did you mean? Right? So the role that I play in their lives is that I'm not trying to be right or smart or witty or wise. I'm just genuinely curious about their lives and what they have to say. Right? So that's a great blessing in my line of work. Right? And so you need to take that in your own life, where you don't have to be right to be vital, to be useful, to be, kind of like, what's the word? You don't have to be right to be energetically engaged with what you're doing. You just need to be curious, like that Ted Lasso thing. He said something along those lines. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene. He said, people judge me or criticize me or, misunderstood me my whole life. But the thing is they weren't curious about me. Right. And so when you're just curious about your own life, about your own self-expression and not needing to be right, you are suddenly free to express yourself in so many ways. You're free to kind of, like we're talking about all day here today, this whole show, you're free to make mistakes and then get back up. You're free to fail and then try again. You're free to learn everything and glean whatever you can from whatever you do. But if your goal is to be right or to not fail, rather, then that's a pretty limited way to live. Because once you fail, then that's it. What happens if you fail and you don't have as your goal to not fail? Then what happens? Nothing. You keep going. You learn. You grow. You change. You adjust. You refocus. Right? So it's not a series of, I'm failing and this is terrible. Failing is good, because you don't stop. So you don't have to be right. You don't have to be always successful. You don't have to always, or never make a mistake. What's important is, how is it for you to keep moving? And again, to reimagine what is a failure? What is a mistake? Right? What does that really mean to me? Right? So you're not stuck with any of these things as a foregone conclusion. Failure is bad. Mistakes are bad. It's not a foregone conclusion. It's not something that you need to be stuck with, And again, we've been conditioned by whatever society we've been in that is bad. Mistakes are bad. Failure is bad. Not to be right is bad, when it's really not. So try this on. I hope you got something from the guided visualization. And now I'm going to show you another short commercial break, and then I'm going to send you off with some inspiration along the lines of making generative mistakes. Okay? See you on the other side.
Ben Hummel's writing comes from a deep well of experience, practice, and wisdom. The Genius Way teaches you the life skills you need to find your own unique genius. Summoning Genius helps readers to turn a midlife crisis into an opportunity for personal growth. You can find Ben's books on thegeniusway.com, Amazon, and most online booksellers.
If you want to create or express something meaningful and purposeful with your life, you will have to learn the life skill of making generative mistakes. This skill positions you to anticipate and regard mistakes as a requisite part of the creative process and an aspect of growth and learning. Truthfully, mistakes are good things as long as we're paying attention and grasping the information that is generated by the so-called mistake. They show us what not to do and thereby shine a light on a different path that we wouldn't otherwise have considered. Hey, that's our show for this week. I'm so happy you stopped by. It was great spending time with you again this week. And I hope you got something valuable out of this idea of generative mistakes. So here is your weekly journal prompt. Your self-inquiry journal prompt for this week is, what did you learn from your most recent mistake, and what will you do next? Okay? What did you learn from your most recent mistake, and what will you do next? All right. So until next week, guys, I want to ask you to remain curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummel on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel.